This is Rebecca Jernigan, your tour guide into discoveries, coming to you live from the heart of America to around the globe via the World Wide Web, satellite, and podcast. Let's journey together into the realms of the known to the unknown in search of enlightenment, knowledge, and truth. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet Earth. This is your host, Rebecca Jernigan, and you are listening to Journeys with Rebecca right here on wolfspiritradio.com and heard also on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio B. And please remember that both stations are totally listener supported, so any donations really make a difference. It allows all the wonderful show hosts and their guests to continue to provide the best and latest information, and it certainly isn't mainstream. And don't forget to check out my website. That's journeyswithrebecca.com. Check out the archives, upcoming guests, topics, classes, workshops, as well as setting an appointment for your session with me. And there is always the free newsletter to sign up for. You can find that on the left sidebar on each page you visit. And welcome everyone to the show. I've got a this is going to be a really fantastic show tonight. My guest is Vishnu Swami, also known as the Maverick Monk. Tonight's topic is Eternal Dharma, how to find spiritual evolution through surrender and embrace your life's true purpose. Now, I know that many of you, especially here in the Western world, have misinterpreted the term Dharma. My hand is raised on that. And I can tell you that tonight this show is going to be fantastic for a truly deep understanding of this term and also how we can achieve it. If you have questions, and we hope that you do, please remember to place those questions that you have in the chat box in all capital letters so that those can be sent to us so that we can answer your questions right here on air tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my guest tonight, Vishnu, and welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Now, I have to tell you, I want to tell you before we get into all this, I've been reading your book off and on, right? Your book is not a traditional book, and I'm sure you know that. We're going to get into that tonight. And I found that so most of the guests that I have, they've written what we would call traditional format books. So I can go through and I can read the book, and I got the information that they're sharing. But in your book, it does not allow for that. You have to take these steps. And so I toyed with this for a lot. I have to tell you, Vishnu, I'm being very honest here. I thought, well,
Yes.
I could just read through it, and then at least I would be able to talk intelligently about it. And then I thought, I'm not doing myself any services by doing that. So I got through the first 3 chapters. And that's where I stopped, and I went back and I started to do some of the exercises. And I'm kind of giving away a little bit here, not too much, I hope. But this is a different thing that's going on here. And I have to tell you, I'm really, really excited to have you on and to tell everyone about what really eternal Dharma, the term actually Dharma, really means.
Yeah, I actually wrote the book as a training program. So we don't just want people to have some new ideas in their head and yay, now I know something and life doesn't change. We want people to completely transform, to change, to have a different experience of life and to actually be helped so they can be powerful, can be more effective and actually create tangible results in their life. So I feel complimented that you don't see my book as a traditional book. And because it was a training program.
Well, good. Okay. I was listening to myself and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm actually I'm going to take this how it's supposed to be. But before we get into any more of that, I guess I've been remiss. Some of the people out there would really love to know, first of all, the name you have is Vishnu Swami. And, first of all, if you could just maybe to walk people through a little bit of your history. Obviously, the Maverick Monk, that you are a monk as well, or have been, or whatever the case may be. So if you would give us a little bit of history, because you have an extraordinary bio, that is just astounding what you've accomplished, really.
Well, I guess if you start with the history, when I was 11 years old, I moved to a monastery in India. And when I say monastery, I had mud huts and elephant. One time took my clothes off, which that's personal. I shouldn't say that on the but
No, it's all good.
and and we had mud huts, wake up at 2:45 in the morning, and I got all the traditional training of a monk in India, which is based in what is known as the Vedic knowledge. It's the original body of knowledge, and it's experiential knowledge, like we explained before. That yoga is based in, that Ayurveda is based in, that a lot of people, they know about meditation. We just do that 2:45 every morning. And that was my childhood. I grew up like that. Then I traveled with my guru around the world, 20 countries, 80 cities. He sent me teaching separately, made me the world's youngest swami. But for now, I'm known as the Maverick Monk. And the reason for that is a lot of people I find when they go on the spiritual path, they say, money's bad, relationships are bad, the world's bad. And if you want to be enlightened, what you need to do is disappear, go to the caves in the Himalayas and meditate in some cave and detach yourself from the world. And I completely disagree. I say that real spirituality is not about dropping off of the face of the earth, but it's about dropping back to earth. How do we live an aligned, integrous life where our spiritual life helps our practical life, and where our practical life is a process of spiritual evolution in of itself. So that's what I teach. That's a little bit radical. Some people don't like that, so I'm the Maverick.
Well, let me just say, I've struggled with that, because you get into the whole religion thing and all of that in the book, at least in the first 3 chapters. When I say religion thing, I'm talking about what it is and what it is not. But the schools of thought that have, run across my path in the years I've been here have been, if you really want to be an enlightened, in touch being, it's kind of like you have to give up all of your material things. You walk away from everybody. Basically what you're saying is like what you said, is go live in a cave somewhere. That didn't seem like a real fulfilling life to me either. And, there's this whole thing about you shouldn't have material things if you're really truly enlightened. There's all these, these really dichotomous terms back and forth and contradictory things. And it really confuses the normal person, or the regular person, or the person that really is truly seeking something other than just going to a 9-to-5 job and not being concerned about anything, kind of a thing. So I think your approach to this is quite unique and different. And I like the idea that you're saying, well, why can't you be part of this world if you are of this world?
Yeah. You read this, probably, the myth of the spiritual and material divide. I think there's a myth that kind of seeds this problem, and that says the material domain and the physical domain, the practical domain, are separate. So if you're going to do business, business is business, and therefore you can be cruel, you can be mean, cutthroat, and that's all just business, right? And then the spiritual domain means, just we're having nothing in some Himalayan cave, completely separate from any material possessions. And the problem is saying that they're two separate things. What I like to understand is the divine, or some people, know the divine as God, even though I don't really like to represent or teach religion in a sense, because that's been perverted in so many ways. And also because I think God and the divine exists much more magnanimously than to be defined and confined by only one religion and one approach. But if we were to say God or the divine, if everything in this world is a creation from the divine, if everything we see, everything we touch, everything we smell is all a manifestation of the divine, how can it be bad? How can it be wrong? That doesn't make sense. And it's not even, substantiated in the thousands and thousands, 5,000 years of wisdom, which a lot of people claim to represent, who hold those ideas. Anyway, you've got a question?
No, no, actually I don't. I was just going to say, when you were talking about that, is maybe one of the things that we could get into is the whole idea behind, the whole idea behind what the Dharma terminology is. That was part of it, and the terminology of what you're using right now to explain the Vedas as we go along. that's part of the beginning parts of this book. And I'm sure there's way more information later on in the book as we get through. But those are some of the things that I'd love for you to expand upon for the audience.
Yes, my book is called Eternal Dharma, and I had a big fight with the publishers whether we should call it that or not. I was thinking it's too much of an esoteric term. Who's going to know what Dharma is? And they said that's exactly why we need to call it Eternal Dharma, is because the concept of Dharma is one of the most beautiful concepts that I've come across ever. What Dharma means, it means inherent constitutional nature. It means function. It means core duty. It means purpose. So the idea of Dharma is that everything has a reason for existing. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a function, and that is inbuilt into what it is. For example, if you have a pen is made to be written with, and that's just what it is, what it was made for, and what it does. And when a pen is used for writing and is used for what it's meant to be, then it is happy, it's going according to its Dharma, it's going according to its nature, and there's no problems. But when you use it you use it as a hammer, try to use it as a nail, it's going against its function. So really what the concept of Dharma is that I teach in the book in the beginning, we go into the Dharma of the world, we go into our own specific individual Dharma, is why do we exist? Why are we here? What is our purpose? And how do we act according to that purpose, where happiness, where power, where effectiveness, where peace, where what I call passionate enlightenment is a natural side effect of just being who we are. So that's a little teaser into the concept of Dharma. But really, like you also asked about Veda, which is the body of knowledge that yoga and Ayurveda and all these ancient Eastern wisdoms are based upon, all of Veda is really just striving to understand Dharma and to empower people to live their fullest potential, to live their fullest Dharma and highest purpose.
Well, when you were talking about Dharma and finding our higher purpose, through the years, that's been a question that people ask me in sessions. I mean, we've had many discussions through the years. I've been in radio for 14 years or something like that now. What is your calling? What is your life's true purpose? And maybe you can explain to people, because you have a formula, I guess. I kind of hate putting it in a cubbyhole, but you have kind of a formula here in this book that allows you to actually view what your life's purpose is. Could you give us some insight as to how one can do that through this book, Eternal Dharma?
Well, one of the things that's important to know about purposes is you actually have several purposes and two basic categories of purpose. And that's why a lot of people are lost. They think, what's just the one thing? But we're multifaceted beings. There's more dimension to us. So there's the purpose there's what I call a temporary Dharma, or a purpose that's there for one specific period of time. For example, being a mother, being a father. If you have a duty as a mother, but that duty, that purpose to take care of your child, to nourish your child, to protect your child, to love your child, that didn't exist before you became a mother. And it won't, let's say if you believe in reincarnation, which is a whole nother discussion, but in your next life, that purpose also may not exist. But as a mother, you have an undeniable duty, an undeniable dharma, a purpose, a higher calling. It's a natural expression of who you are. You have a dharma to take care of your children. So that's what's called a temporary dharma. So when we speak about temporary dharmas, we have several temporary dharmas. It could be as a father, as a teacher. It could be as a student. It could be as a whatever your profession is, whatever your vocation is. And really the Vedic knowledge goes into seeing, okay, according to your body, according to your mind, according to your natural inclinations, what is the best vocation, or what is the best purpose for you? How do you say, what are you meant to be? What are you supposed to do when you're here in this world in your practical day-to-day life? And that's a journey in itself, and that's important. But then what's even more important and more beautiful than just how do you say, a temporary purpose is, what is your eternal purpose? What exists? Why do you exist? What is your purpose that exists beyond the temporary nature of the body that is always changing? Every 7 years, every cell of the body changes. Every 7 I don't know, however many years, our mind changes, our emotion changes. So what is it that stays the same about us? Ancient wisdom tells us that we are eternal. That's why no one wants to die. No one wants to die unless they're really miserable, but they still don't really want to die, right? People want to live on. And the reason is because that's part of our dharma. That's part of our nature. We are eternal. Everyone wants love. Everyone wants connection. That's one of the reasons why the internet is so big, and Facebook. Oh my gosh, everyone's just addicted to Facebook because they want to connect with other people. You know, social, what people will do under social pressure, just for love, just for approval, just for connection to people, what people will do for their family. People will sacrifice. They'll give up their physical body for that higher purpose, for that higher love, that higher connection, for something they believe that will be eternal on. So what we say is that just as the physical body can have so much complexity, our digestive system, our endocrine system, the blood, and if you do acupuncture, the energetic body, and our bodies can be so complex. What about our soul? What about a higher eternal self? And uncovering and living according to the purpose of that self, of that dharma, is our eternal dharma, and can afford us a greater type of happiness than is available with the body and with temporary dharma.
Well, you've said something there that kind of struck me. You know, we talk about the physical body and all of its, you know, moving components and all the unseen things it does. It's really quite miraculous, by the way, the physical body. It's really, it's just amazing. And we take care of it. We try to take care of it, whether through, you know, medicines and yogas and the energy work that we do in the meditations, but we don't always feed our soul like we should. You know, the soul needs attention just as much as the physical body does, you know. And I think we got separated from that.
A lot of people give the example of a bird in a cage. We spend all this time scrubbing the cage and making the cage all pretty, but we're not feeding the bird inside, which is the most important. That's why sometimes people feel empty, or sometimes people, they try so much they feel empty inside and they pretend they don't. But inside, people, they think there must be more. There must be something deep, and that's because we think we're this body. We think we're the cage. We identify with something which is not us. And that misidentification leads us to pain. It suffers. It causes so much. I mean, I don't have to describe the pain because we all live it. We all experience the negative sides, you know. But so yes, I agree. Taking care of the soul is essential. But I think there's a bigger myth. A lot of times people think, and remember before how we were saying how some people think on the spiritual path, material things are bad, possessions are bad, money's bad, sex is bad, and spiritual must be something which is just zoned out into this bliss of nothingness, right? Yes. Because a lot of people get overwhelmed with the complexity of this world. The body is so complex, the world is so complex. And so they get overwhelmed with it. So they think, okay, I've had enough of this. I've had enough suffering. What I want to do now is I want to connect with the divine. So I'm just going to zone out and nirvana and nothing and just like become zero. And I disagree completely. I remember I was watching this Hollywood dance. I had a friend of mine they did this big Hollywood production in the nice theater there, and I was invited, so I went, and it was the story of someone on their spiritual path and them searching and dealing with the temptations of this world. And when they were dealing with the temptations of this world, they had all this beautiful music and they were dancing and they were all spinning around and it was all like flashy with these lights and it looked pretty cool. And then they showed the person that what they were striving to be, their idea of enlightenment. And that what they were striving to be was just this person, this yogi sitting in a cave, just going Om, and just had like this bright light, and this person sitting there. And I said, if you had a neutral perspective, which one's cooler? The temptations were way cooler than just the nothingness. And me coming from the how do you say, the perspective of being a monk since I was a child, since teaching this stuff in 20 countries around the world, my PhD, writing the book, and so on and so forth. By the way, you can get the book on maverickmonk.com. But so I thought that was almost ludicrous. I was like, why? And I realized what it is people just have such little experience and such little taste of what I call the spiritual domain or the transcendental domain. There's so much misconception about it. Really, if we can experience like one unit of happiness in this world, in the spiritual dimension, we experience infinity. So for every every, cupcake we eat and the happiness that it can provide us, every vegan cupcake we eat, gluten-free, right? There's orders of magnitude. There's so much more happiness and dimension and color and flavor and experience that can happen in the spiritual domain. So I think when people talk about enlightenment and spiritual stuff, I think it's such terrible marketing. It's who would want that, just to sit there and do nothing and to zone out? And I understand it, because the world has so much pain and so much suffering. So there's almost an attraction to the serenity of nothingness. But really there's so much more beyond that. And that's what I strive to do in the book, is give people not just a theoretical understanding of that, but a practical experience of being able to grasp that spiritual domain, but also be able to use the power, so to say, and this ancient wisdom to practically empower them in the practical domain as well.
So, I've sat here and listened to you for a few minutes, and one of the questions that I have is, we're going a little backwards a little bit here, is you seem extremely clicked in, and you're obviously you're young. You were young for to be 23 as a swami, the youngest ever. Yes.
Yes.
And were you just always questioning I guess my curiosity is some of the questions that you pose in your book is like, I wish I'd have thought of that myself. I was like, gosh, I considered myself a fairly deep thinker, but now I have to rethink all of that. So
yes, it's working exactly my plan.
So I'm just fascinated by, where did the trigger mechanism for you come in to where, you obviously drove your own path there in what you're doing with the messages that you're trying to get across. So I'm just trying to figure out what was it that was the trigger? What questioned you on, the path that you took?
Dharma.
To be different.
I understand. So dharma means nature. It's one of the words that I used for it in the book. So dharma means everyone has a specific inclination and tendency in nature. And I'm a questioner. I always have. I remember my kids friends making fun of me. I heard there was a car crash, and I said, why was there a car crash? And I was like 4 or something. I was like, why? I always ask why?
Yeah,
what is the deeper truth behind it? And so I've always, any idea that comes my way, I try to destroy it in a million ways, and I challenge it. And then I also give it the benefit of the doubt, and I try to justify it in a million ways. And then whatever kind of stands those two tests, I'm like, okay, that's probably a pretty good idea. And so I'm a thinker, and I think, and I hopefully give other people, food for thought as well, to be able to encourage people's own inquiry. The ancient wisdom teaches us that it's through inquiry that one begins the spiritual path. Actually, atato brahma jigyasa, as they say in Sanskrit, or the ancient scriptures, the Vedanta sutras, they say that one's spiritual life begins when they begin asking, why am I here? How can I be happy? What is the purpose of life? What is the deeper nature of my existence? What is God? And as we inquire, as we ask, then Guru, which is inside of the heart, God, which exists everywhere, Paramatma, that supreme being, always provides answers and guides us. If we sincerely ask, the questions will come. The answers will come.
So you mentioned Vedas a lot, and through the years, I've heard of Ayurvedic medicines and Ayurvedic teachings. I have unfortunately not studied them enough to just not be familiar with it at all. But I'm not totally unfamiliar with those terms. Maybe you could expound on that just a little bit, because your book has done nothing but make me just question even more. And that's good. That is an excellent thing. It is an excellent thing to do, is to question and to ask and to think, without it, overtaking every moment of your life, obviously. But
why not?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I love it. Anyway, anyway, go ahead.
So Veda means knowledge. The literal translation, it means knowledge. Historically, if you look at Vedas, it's basically a bunch of books. And when I say a bunch, it's several libraries big of encyclopedias of knowledge of wisdom. And they're about, if you look historically, they're officially between 5,000 and 7,000 years old. But then if you look what's written in them, they're way older than that. And so oftentimes when people say Veda, they're talking about that pile of books that's, in India, and they've got different Vedas that deal with different aspects of life, like the Kama Sutra is part of Vedas of sexuality, Vastu Sastra, which is the knowledge of building buildings and beautiful architecture, like the Taj Mahal was built in these beautiful temple structures. And then there's yoga, which is also part of the Veda, which is the health science. Yoga is actually much deeper than a health science. It's a spiritual science, which is very much misunderstood in the world. I find it interesting to see how yoga's evolved here in the Western world.
Yeah, we kind of have mutilated everything, Emily.
Lululemon, go Lululemon. Anyway, there's Veda, there's so many different aspects. Ayurveda is the medical science of Veda. There's also one book, The Lost Secrets of Ayurvedic Acupuncture, which explains how acupuncture and much of Chinese medicine is also based in the Vedic wisdom. And the Buddhist monks, when they left India, they brought that wisdom over to China. So historically, that's the understanding and the philosophical understanding of what is Veda. It's those books. But Veda is so much more than that. And you know this because you read that it's part of the introduction or the beginning part of my book. I explained that Veda is actually a living, breathing knowledge. And when someone can tune into divinity, when someone can tune into God, when someone can connect with their deeper selves and not be clouded by the muck of this world or by what's going on, then there's an inner knowing that's guided from Guru inside of the heart. It's a spiritual, eternal, pulsating knowledge. So, and that is Veda. That is knowledge that vibrates through all of existence. Sometimes when I'm on a radio show or giving class, someone will ask me a question that I've never asked before, which is surprising because I ask questions all day. And, but sometimes they'll ask me a question and I haven't really thought of it before. So what I do is I tune in and I just let the answer come forward. And it's oftentimes it's like, wow, where did that come from? And what happened was I moved out of the way and allowed eternal knowledge that exists to come through. So if you look in many spiritual traditions, and not even spiritual traditions, even artists, even scientists, even people in martial arts, I did martial arts, is when people move out of the way and let a natural knowledge almost possesses negative, but be able to come through them, that is Veda, that is knowledge. Some people call it being in the state of flow, or which I think is a preliminary stage. So if you look at like the Bible was channeled, Quran was channeled, many different of the great spiritual texts was someone channeled and this eternal knowledge came through. So that is really what's understood as Veda, but there's so much more depth than just Veda knowledge, the nature of knowledge.
Oh, I mean, if we look at all of existence, I mean, we could be talking about billions upon billions upon billions of years, and how that comes forward is quite another thing.
Yeah. I think.
Go ahead.
Oftentimes, I think it's very egotistical to think that we could actually understand it all. It's the epitome of false ego to think that I can understand. I myself, I'm a teacher. I write books. I teach. MaverickMonk.com. You can get some of my articles and books and that. But do I even understand an atom fully? I don't. Who does? Maybe someone can dedicate. You can have whole teams of scientists going just to understand one atom, and they kind of get it, but maybe not. And they're always understanding new things. What to speak of the whole pebble or the whole ocean or the whole world or all the galaxies and the whole dimensions of reality. And we're not even speaking about the subtle plane and the emotions and feelings and information and ideas and data and all just different aspects of reality. If we try to just understand it by our brain, which is, I mean, how big? It's just a small little thing compared to all of reality. We're going to be limited and we will not come to conclusive knowledge. It's impossible. It's impossible. So then what do we do? Especially if you're someone like me that has to understand things. What do you do? Right?
Yeah. It's a question I've asked myself. I'm like, well, there is no, the end. There is no the end. It's just not there. It's just always going to be questions, and then when that gets answers, there's going to be more questions upon that. And I think everything is just multi-layered. When you ask a question, there can be, 10, 12, maybe more layers to just a simple question. It's got lots of legs and tangents that it can go out on.
And that's why the answer is love. The answer is relationship. By nature, our dharma is we're searching happiness. We're searching connection. And we ask questions on the foundation of building loving relationship, then those questions have meaning. Those questions have power. And also, if you look, many spiritual traditions teach about meditation. I also give in my book, Eternal Dharma. But when you can tune into a higher knowledge, then you have access to all the knowledge of the universe on one side, but then it's also giving up the need for intellect. And that's very different. A lot of spiritual traditions say, don't think, just do what I say. And I think that's terrible. That's caused a lot of trouble. That's caused a lot of things. But what I am saying is there's a higher state of being, a higher state of knowing, which is not based on intellect, and it's based on experience, and it's based specifically on an experience of relationship. And that relationship is what is key as opposed to the data and the information and the intellect.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think a lot of people, okay, there's that word. I think a lot of people overthink many topics, many subjects, many pieces of information. And I think if they looked at it in the way that you do, instead of putting it into a thinking statement state, if they could formulate questions upon whatever their thought process is, it may work out better for them. It's just an idea.
It's about experience. It's about experience. Some of our gurus in our line were extremely intellectuals. They were recruited by universities, and you see some of their writings was absolutely amazingly intellectual. And one of the most intellectual in our recent history, in our lineage, his guru was illiterate. His guru couldn't sign his name on a paper, but he learned from his illiterate guru, even though he was like recruited by these universities and he was extremely intellectual, because by spiritual practice, all knowledge comes within. All knowledge is experience. The theory, the data, the information that I teach and that we give, it's all just to keep the mind and the body in balance so that we can cultivate that spiritual relationship and we can cultivate that spiritual practice and realize it inside of us. A story that when I would go teaching in the villages of Bengal, the most likely place in the world to be eaten by a tiger in the villages, I would tell this story of one person in the British times, when the British people, they came to India, they didn't experience what a mango was. And then the Indian people, they gave him a mango, and he was like, wow, it's sweet, it's sour, it's hairy, and then there's a seed, right? So he kind of had an idea of what a mango is when he ate it. He went back to England and told his people, there's sweet, sour, hairy, and a seed, but no one could really understand how could a fruit be like that. And like, anyway, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically, the proof is in the pudding. It's in the experience. So people can talk about, especially about the spiritual domain, people can talk about it forever till the cows come home. And you never really know, because unless you're experiencing it, it's just an intellectual game, right? It's not connected to reality. But when someone's eating the mango, when someone's tasting the pudding, when someone's experiencing a beautiful transcendental relationship with the divine, and when that experience and that knowledge is helping them make more money, have better relationships, be effective and powerful, run more powerful businesses, then it's not really a discussion. Then it's not an intellectual debate anymore. It's an experience of being, an experience of living. And that's what I strive to give people in the book. That's why you said it's not a normal book. It's like, no, I don't just want to teach people some data. So what? That's not going to help them. I want their lives to change. I want them to transform and to be able to taste the mango.
Well, and you do that. And there's a couple of examples that you give in the book, and I'm like, wow, just the verbiage and the wording of it. It's what's the word I want to use here? It's like I don't know. It's full.
Mm-hmm.
It's full.
Yeah.
That's the word
I crammed a lot
Wholesome?
in there. Yeah. Just for the
Yeah,
people who are listening, maverickmonk.com, you can get links to Eternal Dharma, to the book, and I hope you get it because you'll
yeah, and
really.
I do too. I hope that everyone goes there and look and read your bio. Your bio alone is a book in and of itself. It's absolutely fabulous. It's fantastic. I was really excited when the publisher, or yeah, I think it was your publisher, got a hold of me and sent me the information on this, and I was like, I need to have him on. I need to talk to him. And I know there's a lot of other people. You know, the good thing about having a show and having you on, people can relate to what you're saying, and you know, they have a voice and they have an energy behind you, and you know, they can get a sense of who you are. And then when you get the book and you read the book, wow, it becomes just a huge difference. It's just not that it's bad. It's a good thing. Becomes, again, more complete, I guess is the word I want to say. So I'm missing a lot because I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on all of this because just like I said, I only got through chapter 3 and I have to go back because I didn't do all the exercises.
We
I
didn't
was
even
reading.
get to the main part.
I didn't because I was like, okay, I owe it to myself, you know, to do this, because we all ask that question. What is my life's purpose? And as I was reading your book, I can tell you is that I have a lot of temporary dharmas, have had a lot of temporary dharma. And it allowed me to kind of rethink, um, a different way of letting go of some things that I was hanging on to because I didn't know what else to do with it.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you introspect and rethought, and exactly the intention. So, people, maverickmonk.com.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more. We certainly want to get into some more details in this,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot more for you to share with people, I'm sure.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
I mean, this is a small book compared to what, you're all about and what you have to offer. I know you offer internet classes as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What
I'm
are
doing.
those? How do those differ from your book? What's different about those?
Everyone asks me about meditation. They're
Uh-huh.
like, meditation. Can you teach me how to meditate? And it's like a fad in the world. And everyone wants to learn how to meditate. So I was like, okay, I see a lot of the meditation that's out there. And I'm like, that's cool, but there's so much more that people are missing, kind of the authenticity and a map to be able to hold all the different styles of meditation and become a master in it. So right now I'm working on releasing a course on meditation, teaching the Maverick meditation method. And if you get on my mailing list on maverickmonk.com, then I'll let you know when it comes out. And the Maverick meditation, it's going to be it's really exciting. It's just really depth. That's my baby now. If anyone who knows who wrote a book, when you write a book, it's like your baby. It's like a firstborn child. There's so much in there. Now my
Yeah.
baby's Maverick meditation. But yeah, so I teach Maverick meditation. I have this other thing which I call the 6 spiritual truths. I took 5,000 years of wisdom and I condensed them down into 6 truths. One is like why you should not follow your passions. 2, which is part of the main subject of this book, which we didn't get into yet, is to make the invisible visible. And anyway, so another thing I'm also working on is the 6 spiritual truths. But for now, the foundation, Eternal Dharma on maverickmonk.com. That's enough to keep someone full for a while. That takes me over there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, meditation is something that's near and dear to my heart. Near and dear to my heart. Um, it was through learning how to meditate for myself that I actually, um, was able to really connect with outside of self and listening. I was one of those OCD people.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I did was perfectly timed. everything had to be exactly in its place. If I set a vase down on a table and somebody came along and moved it over an inch, I would move it back that inch because it had to be perfect. I was just really OCD, and I always had chatter going on in my head. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Couldn't sleep. I was an insomniac. I was always talking to myself inside of my head, blah, 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 just going on and on and on, just driving myself crazy. And, it was a bit of a struggle, but I have to tell you, when I got into the groove, when I hit the synced in or whatever you want to call it, and I was able to stop that internal chatter, my own internal chatter, and literally listen to the silence, that was a huge breakthrough for me. So your meditation thing, I'm going to look forward to that. So I will be there signing up. So when you bring that out, because I have people all the time asking me, how do you meditate? How do you turn it off? And, I don't really have a clear understanding of how I did it. I was just tired of hearing myself in my head. I was tired of driving myself crazy. So I had to learn how to turn it off. And, it took me a long time. It took me a couple of years to figure out, something that worked for me, that allowed me to do it, allowed me to sit down and actually meditate. And it was through the breath and the breathing and, focusing on one thing. I had anybody who's got OCD's got a great willpower, by the way. And you can turn the willpower, yes, and you could turn that willpower to be used for you instead of against you. I learned that. And it helped me a great deal, was learning how to meditate. And I still meditate. I can, I do it frequently, all the time, actually, but probably not in the way that you do it. And I sure could. I'm the old dog that can learn some new tricks here. So I'm excited about it.
Yes, it's going to be good. What you described, really, there's 3 reasons for meditating, or 3 goals, and they correlate with what I call about the 3 understandings of the divine, or 3 evolutions of spiritual growth that people go through. It's the whole 3rd section of my book, Eternal Dharma. And so basically the first thing is the world is chattery, like you said. There's all this distraction of this world. There's the pain, there's the happiness, there's the distress, there's the turmoil, there's the stress, there's all the things that happen in this world that just get in our way. And we just need to learn how to be. We just need to learn how to exist without being distracted, and just be centered in ourselves, just be present in the moment, which is a big fad now in the West also.
We'll talk about that.
To be present, to be undisturbed, to be centered, to be resolute, to be balanced, to be in harmony, and by doing that, suffering and pain and distraction and stress, these things get destroyed. So one of the goals of meditation, which is often one of the reasons why people get in, is just for peace, just for serenity, just for that balance. But that's the beginning stage. That's the first stage. Now the second stage is, once you have attained that peace and that balance and that harmony and that nirvana, so to say, what more is there? What is there beyond? Do we exist in that nothingness, or is there a higher beauty, a higher sweetness? Is there a dharma? Is there a purpose to life? Is there a purpose to existence that exists beyond just not being disturbed by the traffic jam, or not being disturbed by the shouting kids? Is there something more? And in the second stage, we begin to see a little form or a little shape of something that exists beyond that. And that's where we begin to connect with what is called the Chaita Guru, or the Guru that exists inside of the heart. That's where we connect with intuition, or that inner guidance, or that inner, there's almost like this pulsating desire that flows through the universe, that if you connect with and you act in according to that, your actions are more powerful, and you begin to, relate in a deeper connection or a deeper purpose. So that's the second stage of meditation. And then the third stage, this is a little bit of overview of the Maverick meditation method. And so then the third stage is a lot more detail in understanding what is that pulsating desire, who is that person. And that's the notion of understanding that if I can have a face, a hands, feet, if I can have family, friends, love, and relationship, if I can have you go to a theme park and be happy and have an adrenaline rush and have so much pleasure and joy, why cannot God? doing what I call reverse anthropomorphization. Am I saying because I have this, God cannot have it? Then I'm defining God's existence by my existence. But if you look at many, many ancient spiritual traditions and all around the world, you see, it's not just like one religion or one way. That's very, how do you say, preliminary. That's very low state of consciousness in a way. But it's to understand that, okay, who is God as a person? That's the origin of all sweetness, the origin of all beauty. I live in Hawaii, so yesterday I was looking at this beautiful rainbow across the mountains out of my window. I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. That beauty originated somewhere. That sweetness, that happiness originated somewhere. So the divine, by definition, God by definition is the origin of all sweetness and all beauty and all love and all relationship and color and dimension. So who is that person, and how can I connect with that person? Not in a religious dogmatic way, but in a personal, individualistic, personalized, loving, passionate way. And that's the highest evolution of meditation. It's what I sometimes call a dynamic dance with the divine. It's a union. You're having a love affair with God in your meditation.
Well, that is beautifully said. That's absolutely beautifully said. So I think if everyone out there was listening, or those that will be tuning in and listening at a later time, they couldn't actually listen to the show live, I think they're going to find that in and of itself to be quite dynamic for them. There's lots of words that are coming in and none of them are coming out, so I do apologize. They're all coming in, but none of them are leaving. It's just a lot of information, lots of information. Speaking with you is it's opened up a lot of different doors in here for me, and I'm trying to figure out which one I'm supposed to listen to that sounds the most logical and reasonable at some point.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's get back to, the first 3 chapters is what I got through. And, you talk about the temporary Dharma and the eternal Dharma. And again, you speak a little bit about this whole thing, and I know what I wanted to say early on and I forgot, and I'm just now remembered it. When I was going through, some teachers that, I went through when I was, like in my 20s and 30s, what would be called spiritual teachers, the term Dharma was the opposite, in their opinion, okay, as karma. And I always thought, well, that didn't ring true, but there again, it's one of those things where I look back and I go, now see, that's one of those things I should have questioned, is because it didn't sound right to me. It didn't feel right to me, but I didn't question it. I didn't accept it, but I didn't question it either. I didn't go in deeper. So have you heard that before, that Dharma is the opposite of karma? And in your opinion,
No,
what is
it's
karma?
not.
Okay.
That's not true. Yeah.
I know it isn't, but
yeah.
but just for sake of, because I do know a lot of people over here in the West, that's what they think. That's because that's what people have taught them.
I mean, I don't even understand how Dharma can be the opposite of karma. Karma means action. And inherent in action, there's a natural reaction. So a lot of people, when they think about karma, they're thinking about the reaction. Like karma is karma is you do something and then something else will happen to you. Do something good will happen to you. Do something bad will happen to you. And that's true. And that is what I guess we would call the law of karma. But a lot of emphasis, which people wrongly focus on karma, is the reaction side of it. But what's more important is the action that causes the reaction. There's the action that causes the reaction, and our attention needs to be on what is that action. So the real question is there something which is karma yoga? How do we use our actions? How do we use our action or existence in this world as a process of uniting with the divine, as a process of enlightenment? So the real question is, what is right action? What is the proper way to effectively live? What is the proper way to effectively run a business? What's the proper way to effectively have a fight? What is the proper way to? It's there. There's a whole scripture on fighting. I study martial arts. What's the proper way? One time, just a little side note, I was with my guru, and I was I guess I still am young, but I'm a teenager, I guess. And we had just traveled to another part of India for a huge festival where we had 15, 20,000 people visiting. And so I got off the train and I came and I went to the guru in West Bengal and I paid obeisances, and he was sitting there like you would expect a guru to be, all grave and strong and staunch. And he looked at me with his guru. The literal meaning of the word guru is gravity or heaviness, intensity. So he looked at me really intensely, says, "You're going to have to learn everything." And I was like, yes, Gurudev, right? And he was like, "You're going to have to learn how to cook. You're going to have to learn how to do the spiritual rituals that we do. You're going to have to learn how to speak and teach the philosophy." And then he said, "You're going to have to learn how to bicker." And it was a Bengali word. It wasn't in English. I speak Hindi and Bengali. It was in Bengali. And the word means like uselessly quarreling and bickering with people. And then I began laughing and I was like, what? What did he say? But like respectful. Says, yes, you have to learn how to argue with people. Like, you see me, I'm a very good arguer. Anyway, it was just really funny. So it was
Oh
out
my
of place.
gosh. There you go. There's my guru, man. And he's like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of blows your idea of what it was supposed to be about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Go ahead.
Karma, or the way in which we act in the world, touches every facet of our life. The way we brush our teeth, the way we relate with our family, the way that we bicker, the way that whatever we do is an action that will reap a reaction. So then the question is, what is right action? What is the best way to act to give me the best reactions, to be able to create the life that I want, to be most effective, that will have the least amount of effort and create the greatest results? And the answer is Dharma, like my book. Dharma, eternal Dharma, is who we are, our core inherent nature. That's what, if we use that to determine our actions, those actions will be perfect and yield the best results. So you can say your Dharma, following your Dharma leads you to doing the right karma, which gives you the right reaction karma, or the right karma as people understand, or the actions coming back, the reactions.
You know, I list this a couple of times. You've talked about that tonight, about the right actions, and you talk about it in the book too as well. And that's of huge interest, I think, to many individuals, because we've always been taught to question everything that we do. And your book, I think, is is really gonna help people to not get into that space of relying on, I guess, old programming, for the lack of a better way of saying it, old programming of questioning everything that you do in not a positive way, in a negative way. I think you understand what I'm saying there.
Anything could be either helpful or destructive. So you can question in a way that helps you advance and grow, or you can question in a way that stifles you growing and you just stay in nothingness land.
And it's a habit that we've gotten into, that people get into, whether they were raised in that kind of environment or they became like that or whatever. I think that could be a challenge for many people, and I think this is going to help them a lot to be able to step through that and over it and past it and beyond it, so that they are not questioning it in a negative way of what they're doing. And then also when they arrive at a conclusion, to follow through with that conclusion, whatever it may be. Which is another fear that people have, is I'm not going to say anything at all because I'm not sure about myself. I'm not sure that I'm doing it right, or I'm thinking right, or it's a confidence issue, I think, more than it is anything. And I think your book is really going to help people to become stronger from within.
Yes, give you lots of confidence. Help people act with confidence and certainty and knowledge. In the middle section of the book, I know we didn't get there yet. It's the concept of Dharma, in a sense, is a foundational principle. And once you know, that everything has a function, of purpose, and nature of existence, then the question comes is, what is the Dharma of this world? What is the world made up of? And the whole middle section, which was the reason actually why I wrote the book, it has a system that took me a long, many years to compose or create from the 5,000-year-old wisdom, that basically says everything in reality is only made of 8 things. And if you understand the Dharma and the nature of these 8 things, how they interact with each other, then you can do anything. It's like if you know the different notes on a keyboard, once you know those notes, you can play any tune. So if you know these 8 things that the world's made up. You can play any tune. The same wisdom's been used to win wars. It's used in health. It's used in business, in relationships, in anywhere. You can just use these 8 things and understand them. And those are earth, water, fire, air, ether, which is sound, vibration, or space, then mind, which is emotion, intelligence, which is information, data, and then ego, which is identity, beliefs, paradigms. And once you've mastered them, you know them, you're set.
So we're at that break time, you guys, but when we come back, Vishnu, I'm going to have you repeat that because the music did start and I'm not sure everyone heard that. But you guys do not go away. We have more with Vishnu Swami right here on Journeys with Rebecca, so please stay tuned.
MaverickMonk.com.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. And you are listening to Journeys with Rebecca. My guest tonight is Vishnu Swami, also known as the Maverick Monk. We've had quite a delightful first hour. We're going to have just as good of a second hour, if not better. Welcome back, Vishnu.
Hey, Rebecca. Yes, let's make it better.
Well, I thought the first one was pretty good. Anytime my guest can make me laugh as much as you have, it's a good night. I do laugh a lot, though, truly. So, okay. And at the last of the first hour there, you were giving out those different steps, and we got cut off. Some of the music came in. I'm not sure if everyone heard all of that, and I'd love for you just to repeat that part before we go forward, okay?
Okay. This is actually the bulk of what my book is about. It's what motivated me to write the book in the first place. The book is Eternal Dharma for those new listeners coming on maverickmonk.com. Basically, what I call the unprecedented elemental reality system. I know that's a big name, but what it says is that all of reality, anything you can see, anything you can touch, anything you can experience or know is only made of 8 things. It's made of a mixture of these 8 things. Earth, which is physical things, hard things. Water, which is fluid, adaptability. Fire, which is clarity, vision, purpose, passion, but also the actual heat, fire, heat, and light. Fire, air, which is oxygen, or also prana, chi, wind, energy, air. Then mind, then ether, which is space, which is sound, vibration, which is space, and then mind, which is our emotions, intelligence, which is information, data, and then ego, which is identity or beliefs or paradigms. And everything is just a composition of these 8 elements. So if the elements are in balance, are in harmony, then things are effective, things are powerful. And when things are out of whack, when the elements are not in balance, when there's too much of one and not enough of the other, then that's what throws things off. And it's based in wisdom that's being used for acupuncture, for Ayurveda, for martial arts, fighting sciences, also based in this wisdom. So, for example, in your body, if you have too much fire in your body, like I actually did yesterday, then you have a fever and you've got too much heat inside your body. So then what you need to do is you need to increase the water or increase the earth, which brings down the heat, and then your body comes into balance. And Chinese medicine and acupuncture is all just the different acupuncture points are all about tweaking these elements inside the body, 5-element acupuncture. So what I did was I said, okay, well, we use this in health systems in the body, and we use this in fighting systems and in yoga, but how do we use that in a business system? How do we use that to be able to create an effective relationship? How do we use that so every action that we have is something which is effective, something is powerful? How do we use that for goal setting? How do we use that in personal growth? How do we use that for the practical things inside life? And so I go into depth and I teach about that in the whole middle section of Eternal Dharma.
You know, I think what one of the most of the book, even though I only went through the first 3 chapters, was really quite astounding on how you view the world, how you present the material, as far as you talk a little bit about business, you talk about people's personal goals, and you know that's what we consider real life. And you also touched upon and this kind of rolling backwards and getting into a little bit of the meditation and some of the guru stuff and spiritual teachers, whatever you wish to call them, um, they get into this whole idea of being present. You're being present all the time, and um, and you have an explanation for that idea of being present. Um, and I'd like for you to share that with the audience, if you will, because I think the way that you worded it there in the book um, really kind of helps put things into kind of perspective for people.
I think what you're referring to is in the book, I say that it's not just about being present for the sake of being present. It's
Right.
how do we be present with purpose? How do we be present with love? It's what do you do in that present moment? What do you experience? What's actually going on in that presentness? Getting present is it's just stage one. It's just the beginning. It just means, okay, I'm here. Now you're here. What are you going to do? How are you going to live? How are you going to be? Where's the next stage? You know? And it's kind of like ground zero. Then we build 1, 2, 3. We build on top of that.
Well, and that's what a lot of these teachers will do is they'll say, well, they're always saying being present, but they don't go any further than that, but that you're in the present moment. They don't talk about any of the other things that you were just saying in regards to that. And I always thought, well, that's okay. I think I'm most generally speaking, I'm generally present. And if I'm not, I tell people, look, I'm a little not here. So, I'm aware I'm not present. I'm doing something else. But the way that that's being worded and the way that some people are being taught is that there doesn't seem to be, as you would say, any purpose to it. You're just present. Okay. So what do we do when we're present? Just hang out,
Yeah. It's like, so
and
what? What's the point?
Yeah. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm hanging out. Now what? Is there, I'm waiting for something or what's going on?
So what I promise in the book is that I will teach you 2 things. I will hold your hand and empower you 2 things in my book, Eternal Dharma. And that one thing is effective action. I'll teach you how to, whatever you're doing, whatever goal you want to achieve, whatever you're trying to achieve in the practical, tangible, measurable, materialistic, if you want to use that word, in the physical realm, in the physical world, whatever you want to achieve, I can help you do that better to yield better results and be more powerful with the backing of 5,000 years of wisdom. So really this book is actually, it is a spiritual book, but it's also a personal growth book. It's a self-empowerment book, and I teach a lot in those spheres. I've shared the stage with like Les Brown and Bob Proctor and
Right.
a lot of the personal growth. And then the next thing I promise, which is perhaps more important, but it does not negate the first part, which is effective action, is I teach passionate enlightenment. How do we have enlightenment, but not just enlightenment that's just zero and nothing and boring, but passionate enlightenment where you're in a passionate, loving relationship with the divine. And so when you're in the present moment, so to say, what we want to be doing that for, and in that moment, we want to be effective in whatever we're doing and advancing in our spiritual evolution, growing in our spiritual journey, developing that love, that connection, that higher sense of knowledge inside of our heart. And that's really the goal of my training program that I put in this book on maverickmonk.com.
Well, I have to say, as I was reading the book and I'm listening to you and I was thinking about all of this and I thought, now let's see, you are really an extraordinarily, I'm going to say happy person. You're extraordinarily happy. That's the energy that you give off. It's not a fake thing here at all, that you truly enjoy what you're doing. And so that speaks extreme volumes to me. And I'm sure it also passes along to the listeners out there as well. I mean, it comes through.
Actually, that's not true.
No? Okay.
No, I'm only happy when I'm doing this stuff. When I'm doing my Dharma and when I'm teaching and when I'm connecting with the divine and doing this, I love this. But then just like everyone, I have my on days and my off days, and I'm not always on it. And then I'm miserable at those times.
Well, misery, that's the thing that we sometimes I say, look, I'm just having a bad hair day. I'll get over myself. Just, give me a few minutes. I allow myself that. I don't deny when I'm having a bad day or a bad minute or hour or whatever it is. But I do tell people I'll get over it. And when I do, you'll know. And I'll be okay after that.
In the ancient wisdom, the Bhagavad Gita, you might have heard of it. It's kind of like one of the most famous and essential books of the Vedic Eastern Hindu tradition. It explains that happiness and distress, they come like winter and summer. Sometimes they come, sometimes they go. They just come like winter and summer seasons. And what we need to learn how to do is be steady and fixed in ourselves and who we are in our transcendental relationship, despite the happiness and the distress and the dualities of this world, the heat and the cold, the good times and the bad times, because by nature there'll always be switching. We sometimes would think that, okay, maybe I'll do the spiritual thing to only always be in a happy time or a good time. But there's a special type of sadness that is extremely beautiful. And I'm not talking about the miserable sadness that probably most of us always experience and really shouldn't experience that much. But there's even a sadness in love, in relationship, that makes love more beautiful.
Yep.
So
I felt it. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. People say, yeah, but it's true. It's very true. So I'm gonna, go ahead.
Yeah, is because that's a whole nother can of worms that I wasn't planning on bringing up. There's a whole nother dimension of reality.
Yeah, it is.
Rasa tattva, as you would say in Sanskrit. But, okay, continue with your questions.
Well, what did they say in Sanskrit? How do they say it?
Well, rasa tattva, what rasa means juice. It means nectarian essence, like you have flowers. And what's the nectarian essence of those flowers is if you squeeze those flowers and you take the floral extract or the honey from the flowers. So there's life, and then there's the juice or the vibrancy, the sweet part, the nectarian essence of life and what we do, and more specifically in relationship. And relationship to each other, yes, but more specifically in relationship with the divine. And what that rasa is, that is emotion. That is spiritual emotion, which is this, sometimes it's described as a whirlpool. There's like this piece of straw in a whirlpool that gets pulled down, that gets pulled up, that gets drowned, that gets spun around. So in the highest states of passionate enlightenment, we're in a passionate, loving relationship with the divine, and sometimes we're being drowned in that love. Sometimes we're being thrown up and being spun around, and our hearts spitting with so much emotion and drama and beauty. And that is, in a sense, that's what I call passionate enlightenment, or the higher dimensions of enlightenment. And in that moment when we're separate from the divine and when we're not connected, we feel so much pain because there's so much happiness in being connected with our beloved. So that's a little bit of an overview of rasa.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. It's that was beautiful. So I have a couple of things here. And I guess I'll just kind of say it like this. I'm not really young anymore. Not really old, but I'm not really young anymore. Is it too late for people to find out what their true purpose is? Do you think that you, when you leave this physical form, that that it's because you have nothing left to learn, or it's just your turn to go? When are you too old to not do these things? Are you ever too old?
No. Spiritual life is not based on the body. It cannot be based on the body. It's something which is eternal, which exists beyond this body. Otherwise, then if we have that type of thinking that, young people can do it, but now I'm too old, then that same type of psychology can say only black people can do it and white people can't do it. Only women can do it and men can't do it. And it kind of creates that how do you say, spiritual life is not based on the body, on the designation or a temporary position in life. The whole reason why we have God, the whole reason why we have the divine, is because the divine exists everywhere and is always there and is always eternal inside all things and available to everyone at every moment in every stage. So yes, our life is a journey, is an evolution, and there is a purpose to it. But what we understand is that life exists beyond this body, and whatever advancement we do in our next life or our next evolution, then we continue from the same place. We continue from the same journey, and just with different vessels. Sometimes we might be traveling by car, sometimes by boat. So it's really, really speaking, I know this is probably not the best marketing, so I'm kind of here to market my book, which is a really good book. maverickmonk.com. But really, to become fully enlightened generally will not happen in one life. Generally, it's a multi-lifetime process.
Sure.
That's why some people, they start as children very eagerly seeking spirituality, and some people in their later age. And it doesn't really matter because it's generally a multi-lifetime process.
And I kind of get that. I got that through my own, discovery process as well, that, you just, that it's a continuation. So now we're going to get into the next portion of this. There's a reason why I asked you the question the way that I did, is the reincarnation thing. There's a lot of people out there that don't believe in that. I personally myself do. I do believe in it, and I do believe that we are eternal. I really do believe that. I know that. We are eternal souls. Our soul is eternal, that we do change bodies. We change where we live, who our parents are, where we're going to grow up, whether we're male or female, et cetera, and so forth. That's how I understood. That's not how I was taught, by the way, but that's just how I know things are. And so to have you come on and say the same thing is a very cool thing. A lot of people do not like talking. Even some of my guests that are, I would consider, pretty forward thinking, people, they don't get into the whole idea of reincarnation. So as you explained it, is that this is literally a journey, that the journey to enlightenment is a process, one after another, until we get to what point? What is your understanding of, do we move to a different Earth? Do we go to a different galaxy? Do we, how do we make our way up? What is it that you know about that?
Okay. So first part about reincarnation. And then the second part is, okay, once we're enlightened, what is the final destination? What is the goal? Is that the question?
Sorta, but that's
Sorta.
close enough.
Close enough. Okay. So I want to just say something about reincarnation first, is that we don't really know. When you're dead, you're dead. We don't really know. But I choose to believe in reincarnation because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. If there's no such thing as reincarnation, then life becomes very miserable. We live for just a short amount of time. We try to figure it out. We suffer. We have fun. And then you die. And that's it. And it's all over. It's just it seems such a pessimistic approach to life. Right? And then also a lot of things in life don't make sense. Like, why are some people born suffering? Why are some people born with no legs or blind? Or not born in the Western world. We're in the top 1% or 2% of people in the world. I know I've been all around the world and lived in the poorest places in India. And so life doesn't become fair unless we understand the law of karma, that every action has a reaction. That's why some people can be born as kings and other people born as beggars. And that by necessity needs an understanding of reincarnation, that there was an action that was done in a previous life that determines the current life. And therefore, it also gives morality, because then any actions I do in this life won't just be disappeared when I die. They'll continue into the next life, into the next way of being. So that gives us morality. It gives us purpose. And it also gives us hope. Because what if you find, well, I'm meant to be this, and you're 80 years old, and that's beautiful, but you don't have, it's not like when you do it when you're 20 years old. So basically, I choose to believe in reincarnation, not only because it's backed by 5,000 years of wisdom and all the great intellectuals of history, but because life would suck without it. It would seem miserable. There was no reincarnation. And so having said that, the next part of the question is, okay, where do we go? What happens? What's the final destination? My book talks about spiritual evolution. So what is the final evolution, or what is the evolvedness of our spiritual evolution? And so first part I say is I believe that and this is not just my ideas. I didn't just wake up one morning and think, this is what I believe. It's lots of Vedic wisdom behind it. I'm 11 years old in the monastery. But it is that we take on, like in the Bhagavad Gita it describes, we put on a pair of clothes during the day, then during the night we switch into another pair of clothes. Once our clothes become old, we throw away the old ones, and we get a new set. So life is like that. We've got the soul, which is the little spark of consciousness, of existence, of knowledge, of love. And that identifies with the body for some time with a set of clothes. And then when that one is finished, we're finished using that one for a time, we move into another one and we continue going. But what stays the same is the soul, is our consciousness, is our desire, is our core being. And in that, the reason why we're going through birth after birth after birth, we're getting old, we're getting sick, we're dying, we're being born, which is not a fun thing. No babies are born laughing, they're born.
No, they're not.
Yeah. And so we go through the suffering, and we go through the anguish of breakups and of our family members leaving, and we go through the joys of having children, of being inspired, and we go through all of this turmoil and drama. There's a reason to it. There's a point. And that point is, for us during this whole journey, we're cultivating our spiritual evolution. The suffering has us say, wait a minute, there must be something more. There must be something more beautiful, something more sweet. And then we begin to, like I explained in the first segment, we begin to inquire about the absolute. We begin to inquire about the divine. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? We begin to ask these questions, and then the knowledge begins to come, but not just theoretical knowledge. Like I explained also, we experience, we evolve in our consciousness, and we continue our spiritual evolution till the point of where we're fully enlightened. Now the question is, then what is that fully enlightenment? What is that stage? And that stage is, that's a whole discussion, but that stage is, first of all, is no longer identifying with this body and with this mind, which is what we only have temporary for some time. It's where that soul, which is moving into these different bodies, when we know who we are, when we know our core nature, our core being. But then more importantly than just being who we are in our core nature, not deluded by our material existence, by our physical body, by our mental body, by our conditioning, by our birth and our existence, is knowing what is the dharma of that person. That's why my book, Eternal Dharma. What is the dharma of who we are? And more importantly, how do we experience that dharma, which is a passionate, loving connection with the divine? So I could talk about this some more. Do you want to ask something, or can I continue? I have more.
Please continue. Please continue.
Okay. So in the third section of Eternal Dharma, which is available on maverickmonk.com, I've got to say that, because I want people to transform. So in the third section of Eternal Dharma, I talk about there's three understandings of the divine. There's one ancient part of the wisdom of India that says that Vedanti Tattvavidas, that's in Sanskrit, I'll spare you the Sanskrit, but it says that all the intellectual people of history have tried and strived to understand the one undivisible, supreme absolute reality, the supreme absolute truth, that being that some people call God, that some people call enlightenment, some people call the divine. All the smart people are trying to figure out, what is this? What is that final end goal? And they have come to three conclusions. And all three of those conclusions are correct. The first conclusion is the concept of Brahma. And that is the concept. It's basically when you understand the divine, or when you understand God as not attached to this world. You're not touched by this body and by the material, the muck of this world. It's actually the first stage of meditation that I teach in my Maverick meditation course we were speaking about before. And that basically is nirvana. That's the concept of oneness. That's where someone realizes that really the duality of this world is an illusion, that there's that the idea, the separation between me and the rest of matter and the rest of reality and the rest of the world, that is what's causing my suffering. So therefore, if I kind of just merge into the oneness and just exist in being, not specifically doing anything, but just exist in being, then I kind of live in this one light, in this nirvana, in this serenity, which is not touched by suffering. And just the happiness of being myself is the reward. It is happy. I have no desires. I don't desire to enjoy. I don't desire to manipulate and dominate this material nature. I'm just happy being myself, and inherent in myself is happiness. So therefore I'm content, and therefore I'm happy, and therefore I'm peaceful. And in this first concept of the divine, this first Brahman realization, there are entire religions Their entire, their libraries of books and so much spiritual science is there just to lead people to this first concept of non-attachment, of the negation of suffering. In Sanskrit, we call this mukti or nirvana or liberation from suffering of this world. The second stage of spiritual, of what I call the abridged understanding of the divine. And I forget what I called it in the book. Anyway, I gave it some cool English names, but the Sanskrit name is Brahman. The next stage is Paramatma, and that is when the spiritualists, the transcendentalists, when we're going, we say, okay, now I'm existing in this nothingness and I'm happy. Na sochiti na kangsati. I don't cry in the suffering of this world, and I don't elate in the so-called happiness, which is just temporary, which once again will be destroyed. I just stay in that equanimity, but still I see a little bit of a silhouette. There still has to be some more purpose. There has to be more of a reason. I realize that everything exists and there's a purpose behind it. There's this pulsating desire. There's this reason. There's this intuition. There's this core fundamental truth, this core fundamental principle that pulsates through all of reality, and all of reality exists for that fundamental reality, for that core original spiritual truth. And that spiritual truth is something which is separate from me. It's something that I can know. Who that person is, what that person is, I don't know, but I know that it exists. And when I go into meditation, when I go deep, then I can follow that intuition. I can follow that guidance, and I can kind of exist in an audience. I can see God inside of my heart. I can see God in every atom. I can see God outside of every atom. I see God as near. I see God as far. I am not alone. Everything is not nothing. I always have this eternal companion that has been with me since I was born, since ever I existed. It's always there. Like previously we described of a bird inside of a cage, but it's not one bird inside of the cage. There's two birds. God is always there with me as my friend, wanting to help me along the way. So that's the second evolution, is where we begin to create a relationship and kind of hold the hand and create a relationship with the divine like that. That's Paramatma. And again, there's entire religions and there's entire books and sciences and meditation practices and spiritual journeys and yoga and everything just to understand that Paramatma concept. Then the final concept is the concept of Bhagavan. It means that God is a person, someone who's beautiful. All beauty that exists in this world exists condensed into one physical form. And I can have a relationship as a friend, as a father, as a child, as a lover, as a playmate, I can have many different types of relationships with that divine being who has a name, has form, has qualities, has pastimes, has a whole universe, a whole different realm. And in some religions, they would call that heaven or the kingdom of God. And other places we call Goloka Vrindavan in Sanskrit. Or there's another place of milk and honey, of happiness and sweetness and beauty, where God has a family, where God has friends, in a dimension where I have a life, where I live, and it's not touched by the material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego of this world. It's made of a completely different reality. Now, oftentimes it's scary to discuss that part, because in previous ages, or even now, so many people kill in the name of religion. They say, my God is right, yours is wrong. God is not this name, God is that name. God is not there, God is that. And that's totally missing the point, right? God is unlimited. God can have millions and millions and millions of different forms and millions of different planets. Though if you look into nature, no two snowflakes are made the same. Why should everyone's relationship with God be the same? Why should God be limited by one form? He's not limited. He can have millions, unlimited forms. And depending on our relationship, we have what is called in Sanskrit an Ishta Devata, or it means a worshipable deity, who is the Lord of my heart. And in that stage, that God or that divine, my subjective relationship with God is more important than the objective truth. The question now is not who is God, but who is my God? What is my relationship with God? And that does not negate your relationship with your God, who's the same person, just expressing a different facet in different relationships with different people. So those are the three understandings of the divine.
Okay, so first of all, I'm applauding you on that last one and everything that you just said. And for some reason, I got an extremely emotional response off of that. And, wow, that was some powerful stuff right there. Very powerful, very powerful. I have to say it was very powerful. Okay, I'm going to take a breath for just a moment. We do have a question, and it kind of goes along with this, that third one that you was talking to us about. Very interesting. The question is, in a world that seems to encourage everyone being the same, what does the Veda, or what do you say about individuality? This one's a good one.
Yes, everything is individuality. Subjective truth is more important than objective truth. What my relationship with the divine is more important than objective relationship with divine. What we understand is if you look into nature, if you look into the world, you can understand a little bit of the divine, because the nature is an expansion of the divine. And all leaves are made different. All fruits and trees and flowers, there's so much variety. And in variety, there is sweetness. There is beauty in that variety. So that's why in the Hindu tradition, which is the basis of what I teach of, even though I don't really care about religion, but is that there's so many different gods and there's so many different lineages and sampradayas, and they're all right, and they're not conflicting truths. More specifically, in the third section is where I talk more about, see, in my book Eternal Dharma on maverickmonk.com, the first section I speak about what is Dharma, what does inherent function mean, what is nature, what is fundamental kind of reality Dharma. Then the middle section I go into what is the Dharma of this world, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, physical things of this world. The third section, we give a whole section in the Dharma, or the nature of the divine, where we're discussing the things that we're discussing right now. So I explain that there's 3 stages of spiritual evolution. The first stage of spiritual evolution is dogmatic religion, where people say, my way is the only way, everyone else is going to hell. And that worked in previous times because people could say, people only lived in their nuclear communities. They didn't connect with other communities, other cultures, other languages. So that the divine exists everywhere. God exists everywhere in many different ways. So everyone's experiencing them, but certain communities relate to that God with a specific language, with specific rituals, with specific cultures, with specific histories and books. And that's what religion is. And because people didn't interact with other people, they could say that's the only way, that's the truth. But then as globalization took place, then you have people of various religions going to school together, living in the same communities, watching the same TV shows, acting in the same movies, being part, we live in a multicultural society where we're now cross-pollinating with different cultures. And that opens up to what I call New Age spirituality. And that way people begin to say, you know what? Everyone's path's good. Right? Your path is good. My path is good. It's all the same. And in India, they also have this yatamat tatapat. All paths lead to the same goal, and they're all good your way. And it kind of means I accept everyone and everything. And that's beautiful. That's good, because then you're not, being a bigot. We know it's a good thing, right? But that's important. But in that homogenization of religion, that homogenization of spirituality, of seeing everything as equal, we've lost discrimination, healthy discrimination. We've lost discernment. We've lost the ability to see different levels of sweetness. Like one of our gurus used to say, if you go to buy a potato in the store, you don't just grab any old potato. You look at the potatoes and see which ones are fresh, which ones are old. You pick the right potatoes that you want to get. So if we can use so much discernment in picking potatoes, right? Or then why not in the spiritual path? See, what I understand is that each spiritual path has a specific relationship with the divine that's exquisitely beautiful. And there's a special power in excavating that path. And if we can excavate that path without being a bigot, with loving and respecting all other religions and all other paths, there's a certain sweetness that we can get in our spiritual path that comes from a one-pointedness. An example can be like in a relationship. Okay, I love and respect all women, but I'll commit to one. I have a specific relationship to that one, and going deeper into that relationship is not necessarily disrespectful to all other people of the opposite gender or same gender nowadays, or it's not, disrespectful to anyone. It's just choosing to go specifically into an individual relationship. So what I understand is in the third stage, we have a specific God or a specific divine, even culture. I still wear the cultural things sometimes, I know it doesn't depend on that, but it helps. If you go to a church and you see the beautiful stained glass, or you go to a mosque, or you go to temples and you see the different, beauties that exist in the individuality of that culture, they give us special access into the divine, special relationships, special beauty. So in essence, I guess to answer the question about the non-homogenization and variety, is all sweetness exists in variety. All sweetness exists in that individuality. That's why the Eastern wisdom gives us a guru. A guru is not one set of rules for all people. All mankind follow these set of rules for spiritual enjoyment, for spiritual growth. It's no, this specific disciple needs this specific spiritual path, this medicine. My guru would tell me and my peers completely different things. You do this and you do that. Separate instructions for separate people, because everyone has their own journey. So really, in a sense, on our spiritual path, we've got to craft our own journey, our own relationship, our own individuality. And that's where the most power and beauty lies.
And with that, I have to say that the individuality is we all have you pick a daisy as an example out of a field of wildflowers. Mine happens to be daisy. Somebody else will look at it and say, well, why didn't you pick the wild violets? Violets are my favorite. And, it's the violet isn't any better than the daisy. The daisy isn't any better than the violet. They are a perception of what makes your heart sing, or puts a smile on your face, or has some significance to you, whatever the case may be. And accepting the fact that that person likes violets and you like daisies, and that doesn't mean that you have to accept their violet in place of your own sunflower, or daisy rather,
Exactly.
So, yeah.
It doesn't cancel out. It's almost, I guess, psychologically you can say it's I don't know if you'd say a binary or pluralistic view of reality, as opposed to a monistic, if that's even a word. Singular view of reality.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have a question, and I'm going to read the question, and then I'm going to make a response before I let you answer here. Okay. The guest is suggesting that everyone's God is named differently, but that God is one and the same. But would that not be promoting a one-world religion, which the Bible warns us about? We all know that the Creator is the Creator regardless of individuality of religion. But are we not falling into the plans by accepting a new one-world religion? I'm not sure that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop and let you go ahead and answer that.
Okay, I think inherent in this question is, if we're saying there's one world religion, then that goes with the globalist idea of how do you say, making everyone the same, making one world religion, one world economy, one world things, which I don't know if are true or not. Some people say so, and that takes away people's individuality and is therefore not good. I think that's inherent in the question. I may be misunderstanding, but I think my answer will be good whether I understand that or not. So what I agree. For example, there's the sun. The sun in Spanish is sol. In Sanskrit it's Surya. In English it's sun. In Hindi it's Ravi. Or there's many different languages, many different names for that same thing. And the sun, so you're saying, okay, God is one, and I agree with that. Most religions also say there's one God, but we have different relationships, different names for that same thing. But I bring it further than, rather than just the same person with different names, there's also different relationships. The sun that was in the hottest inhabitable place in Vrindavan in India, in the world where I was, is different than the sun when I grew up in England. And it's different than when I went to Moscow, and it's different than it's here in Hawaii. There's different intensities. I remember when I was in Russia, when I was in 2001 with my guru, we only had like 3 hours of night the whole time when we were there. Only 3 hours. It was totally different. But when I was in Bengal, it would go down at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And so it's the same sun, but it even has a different relationship with different regions of the world. Some places it's hotter, some places its schedule is different. So there's a different language and a different relationship. An example that's often given is of a high court judge. It's the same person, but when he's at court, then people are calling him Your Honor, and they're respecting him, and the attorneys have one relationship with him, the criminals have another relationship, the clerk has another relationship, and the media has another relationship. Same guy, different relationships, different view. Then when he goes home, his son jumps up on his back, right, and calls him Daddy. Daddy has a different name and a different relationship. His wife has a different name and a different relationship. So what I understand is that all the different religions, yes, we are dealing with the same guy, the same high court judge, the same son, the same God, but each religion will have a different relationship. And and this is not popular to say, and I'm not saying this in a first stage bigot kind of way, but I would say that some religions can have a deeper, sweeter aspect of God than other religions. Some places it's permeated by love, some is permeated by fear. Some have a very distant, vague idea of God as just an all-pervasive energy. And some have the idea of God as someone who you can know, someone you can see, someone who you can have as a lover. And it's not that one is right and one is wrong. It's just a different relationship and a different level of depth and different names. And then, of course, when you put it as religion, then you've got different cultural expressions. So to come closer to the question of saying, okay, by saying that we have one God, does it mean one world religion? No, because we're all individual, we'll have our individual way of relating with that God. And that even evolves. Before I used to be more scared of God than I am now. Now it's more of a personal relation. Now it's like, oh, what's up, buddy? Not exactly. Working towards it, getting there. No, but so it's unity in diversity.
Well, and I have to tell you is that, I've studied quite a few different religions, not deeply, but religions. I grew up as a Baptist, all fear-based. I got kicked out of Sunday school because I raised my hand during Sunday school and I said, why do I have to fear God? The teacher was teaching us about the wrath of God or something. I said, I thought God was a loving God. And when my mom come to pick me up that day, she told her not to bring me back, because I was a disruption to her teachings.
What are you doing thinking, you naughty girl? Don't think.
Yeah, I got kicked out of Sunday school because I questioned the teacher. And it was an honest question. I wasn't being mean-spirited. I mean, I wasn't old enough to know what that was like, I was honestly asking the question. And obviously the woman didn't have an answer because she followed her faith religiously. Mm-hmm. And that religion in that particular church purported the wrath and the fear of God and, hellfire and brimstone kind of stuff. And then there was others that I went to that I didn't necessarily understand what was going on, but it felt very uplifting. There wasn't any of that, muck and mire about, hellfire and brimstone. And there was just all kinds of different experiences that I've had and also reading a lot about different religious ideas of religions, I guess is a better way of saying it. And I came to the conclusion many, many years ago, by unpopular vote, I might add, that my relationship is my relationship to what I consider the source of all that is, God, the divine one, whatever you want to call it, I don't really, it's like, it's very hard in these days, to watch what you say. Everything that you say becomes, politically incorrect when we're just really just trying to, convey our own thoughts and our own ideas without it being misconstrued,
Yes.
But it is a personal journey. It truly is a personal journey, in my opinion. And that is the whole point behind individuality.
That's the beauty.
Yeah. I think so.
If everyone looked the same, if everyone thought the same and acted the same and felt the same and did everything the same, then why would you care who you married?
Yeah. Yeah. Why would you get married at all? It would be no fun.
Yeah. Exactly. So if the beauty of relationships in this world is dependent on individuality, why would it be any different with the divine if
Right.
that's the original relationship?
Right. Exactly. So we're getting close. I'm not sure exactly what time this kicks off. I think we got about 7 minutes, maybe. I think
We got about 10.
maybe. Oh, got 10. Okay, we got 10 minutes. That was my producer, JP. Hi, JP.
Hi.
We got 10. We got 10 minutes. And again, maverickmonk.com. Which, by the way, Vishnu, I have placed that in the chat box. I put your website address up a couple of times during the show. You've mentioned it as well, so I hope that everybody gets there and signs up. I'm actually very interested in some of your classes. I want to get through this book. It's really a very thought-provoking book. It kind of reminds me, there was some of these things in the very beginning here, obviously, because I didn't get very far. I was thinking like, I used to think about stuff like that, or I thought about that once before. How come I didn't delve into it deeper? All these different questions came up. It's an amazing thing. And I'm glad I stopped. I'm glad I didn't go all the way through it, just to read it without doing the exercises and everything in it, because I think I really would have shortchanged myself. So if anybody's really interested in getting a different idea of what this Dharma is, I highly recommend this book by Vishnu. It's fantastic already, and I, again, only chapter 3, and it's already creating an excitement within myself that I haven't had for a very, very long time. And the questions that came up in there was about, your life's purpose. And again, as I said earlier to you, Vishnu, I know what some of my, temporary Dharma has been, and now I've got to figure out what the rest of it is. Where am I go from here? Kind of been
You're
in a
doing
limbo
good.
for a few years. What's that?
You're doing good. Continue. You're evolving. You're doing good.
Well, one would hope. That was my goal.
Yes.
Oh, good. So in the next few minutes, what else would you like to share with the audience that we didn't cover tonight, that may be one of your areas that you just love to talk about?
I mean, there's so many areas that I love to talk about.
I could have like 10 hours worth of conversation with you.
Yes, I'm sure we could. But I guess what I would say is that if we don't know our purpose, if we don't know our Dharma, who we are, or we know it, but it's not clearly articulated and it's not clearly expressed in everything we do, in every action, then we're really missing the beauty, the spirit, the power of life. And sometimes someone could say, well, I don't have time for beauty, spirit, and power. I just need to pay the rent. I just need to do that. Exactly. That's why you need to know your Dharma. You need to be able to, because that's what empowers us. That's what gives us the power and the strength to pull through life. That's what brings and infuses beauty and excitement and attachment and motivation and inspiration in life. That's what gives us also you didn't get to this part, but the middle section is like, teach us practicals, like a reference guide on how to effectively, powerfully live and do and be in every situation. So I'll just say myself, I couldn't imagine going through life without this wisdom. And sometimes I forget it because, you can know stuff and experience it and you're not always aware or conscious of it. And life just begins to get difficult and hard. And I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, wait a minute. I know this stuff. I teach this stuff, right? And I just remember I sometimes flick through my own book, right? And I go through this stuff and I'm like, yeah, finally. And then it's almost like this cloud lifts off of me and all the pain and the fear. Sometimes we feel this fear in life and this worry or this lack of clarity. Everything just becomes clear and peaceful and tranquil and passionately motivated. So I really want to share that with you. That's why I did a lot of work to write the book, right? I really, really want to share that. So I really encourage Eternal Dharma. You can get it in Barnes and Nobles all over the United States. Actually, I had someone call me from Australia. I didn't know they even had the book there. They bought the book in the store there and they gave me a call. That was interesting. But, so just get the book and and grow spiritually.
Well, and I have to tell you, this is it's a really cool book. It really is. It's a real easy thing. And I guess I don't want to leave people with the idea that this is like, some, drudgery or something. It isn't. It's just, it's exciting to read it because you just get into this sync with it and you go, oh yeah, yeah. There's this, it's like it relights a spark within. It does. It relights a spark, especially for people that are floundering around. And, I think it's going to be really great. I'm looking forward, to, the rest of your classes. And, at some point, I really wouldn't mind having you back on again, when you get, your meditation and your other classes up and going. We could talk about some of those as well. I would just love to invite you back onto the air because I think it'd be a fun time, not only for you, but certainly for me. I'm being a little selfish here.
I understand. Okay, so I'll contact you when I come up with other programs. Yes,
that would be.
I wanted to say something to the audience. Is the last thing I would want to do is put you through a textbook, like a boring school textbook, or study spirituality. That's so fun. We want it to be light, fun, clear, inspirational, and so maverickmonk.com. You were saying, sorry, I cut you off.
No, your book is just that. I was just going to say it's expressive. It's fun. It's not one of those books you put down and you go, man, I've been doing everything wrong and feeling, because I've read some books going, well, gosh, if that's the way that they look at that, and then I just have been doing everything not the right way. And your book is not like that at all. It's not. It's your words are expressive and it's very similar to how you speak. So that's even better. So, it really is a lot of fun. I truly did have a lot of fun. And I was sitting here as I was reading it today and I thought, and, kind of tuned in. And I was like, it's going to be a fun show. It's really going to be a good show. I can just feel it, in so many different ways, just because it is an uplifting program. You're an uplifting person, even if you have your bad days. We all do. And I call them my bad hair moments. I'll get over myself kind of a thing. And
I don't have much hair, so I don't have that problem.
Keeping it real, man.
Bad hair lifetime, huh?
Yeah, bad hair like this whole life. My hairstyle, what happened?
Ooh, well, I can't say that. I have to cut mine all the time because it grows a lot. So, but it's supposed to. I'm a woman, right? Females are supposed to grow their hair. Supposed to have more than men usually. Isn't that the case?
I don't know. Yeah, sure. Hair.
Whatever I said.
I learned that lesson.
Well, I truly have enjoyed our time here today. Again, everyone, it's maverickmonk.com. I've placed the web address in the chat room a couple of times. If you've missed it, it's maverickmonk.com. I do recommend you going and checking it out. His website is full of just tons of information, so you can get a lot more information before you decide whether or not you want to purchase the book or not. But it's highly recommended. And you said you can also
another domain, eternaldharma.com, just directly for the book. Also, you can put in the chat.
Okay, eternaldharma.com. Okay. Now, you said if somebody signed up too that they could get on a mailing list or on a list for when you do your online classes?
Yeah. So if they order the book on eternaldharma.com, then I give them bonuses. And with those bonuses, then you'll be on my list and I'll let you know about the other classes. I give a course where I actually teach it to people if they prefer listening and watching rather than reading, and some other cool bonuses on eternaldharma.com. But also, if you go to maverickmonk.com, there should be something to register for a webinar. I'm adjusting that webinar now, but you put your information there, then I will let you know of all my other cool programs.
Fabulous, fabulous. Vishnu, thank you. JP, thank you. Tobias, all of you, thank you. Until we meet again, where will your life's journey lead you? Many blessings, everyone, and good night.